It's time to put the good in your morning. You're watching the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14. Today, a man walking across America comes to Joplin.
First came the fog, then came the sunshine, now comes the heat. We are back up into the 90s for at least 2 more days, but we'll talk about why there's going to be cooler temps ahead from the Skywatch Weather Center.
And we find out how the recent COVID surge is affecting local EMS. The KOAM Morning News on Fox 14 starts now.
The 4 states' most watched news starts now.
Thanks for joining us for the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14. I'm Tanya Bach. Emergency medical services face challenges as the Delta variant spreads in the region. Mercy EMS have seen a big increase in calls for services here and in Springfield. This crew out of Cassville is getting more COVID calls than other types of calls, and they have to make more long-distance trips as local hospitals fill up. We spoke to a paramedic who says there's a simple solution to most of the problems they're seeing.
The people that we are seeing that are hospitalized with oxygens of 62%, 57%, things like that, who are COVID positive, they're unvaccinated. Everybody has their own reason to not get vaccinated, but a sore arm for 2 days is much better than burying your wife. It's not worth that.
Dr. Tim Stebbins in Crawford County also says long-distance trips are their biggest challenges. When they have to take a patient to Kansas City, it takes an ambulance out of the county for a full 6 hours. Carl Junction School District hosted a back-to-school vaccine clinic. The clinic offered the required vaccinations for kids returning to school, but also offered COVID-19 vaccines to students and parents. While there's no current mandate for students to get the COVID vaccine before returning to class this fall, officials say it's still something to be seriously considered.
With just how active they are, as social as they are, that really can help stop the spread, among their peers and family.
According to the Jasper County Health Department, as of July 20th, about 15% of kids ages 12 to 17 had received at least 1 dose of the vaccine in the county, while around 9% were fully vaccinated. Missouri Attorney General's office says it has closed its investigation into sunshine violations in the Joplin City Council. The AG says they did not find any violations of sunshine laws. The investigation came following resident complaints about council members gathering in City Hall's dining room before meetings. AG's office says they did provide guidance to the city regarding those complaints. The Humane Society of Missouri says its Animal Cruelty Task Force rescued 21 dogs in McDonald County living in a, quote, appalling situation. Missouri Department of Agriculture used a court order to inspect the property of a licensed breeder. The society claims the dogs were in extremely poor health and that there was evidence others had recently died. They say most of the dogs had no access to water and they had to amputate the leg of one. On a scale of 1 to 10 for body condition, only 1 dog scored higher than a 2. Humane Society of Missouri President Kathy Warnick says, quote, these dogs have been living in horrific conditions. The breeder's neglect is inhumane and utterly reprehensible. Missouri Highway Patrol says a Texas woman died on the Elk River north of Knoll, Missouri. Highway Patrol says Maria Reyes was in a boat that hit a tree and capsized. Reyes was trapped under the boat and drowned. The Highway Patrol says a Commerce, Oklahoma man died in the same general area of the Elk River when he went into deep water. Authorities say Joel Pasquale was unable to swim back. He died at the scene. Former Missouri Governor Jay Nixon will not run for the U.S. Senate in 2022. Nixon said in a statement that he believes he will be more effective outside of this partisan back and forth. Nixon served as governor from 2009 to 2017. Before that, he served 4 terms as Missouri Attorney General. The current field of Democratic candidates includes people with less name recognition than the announced Republican candidates. Incumbent Republican Roy Blunt announced in March he would not seek a 3rd term. A man taking a walk across America crosses through Joplin. Bo Carter started his 100 hikes across America after he was inspired by an act of charity from a little girl he met on the road as a truck driver. He's stopping in Joplin because the Harmony House in Springfield said he should seek out hope along his hike.
I really hope it brings together, people on the matters of hope, and just how the people of Joplin have inspired so many people, not just to survive destruction and come out of that bigger and better.
McCarter yesterday hiked the path of the Joplin tornado. You can follow along with his journey on Facebook. You can find a link to that page in the story on our website at KOAMnewsnow.com.
I was actually looking at this guy and how far he's gone. And look at his shirt. If you see him out, please, please, please make sure he gets some water. I know that he's well prepared for his journey, but show him some four-state hospitality there on his trip if you do see him out and about, and make sure that he stays hydrated. Pretty cool story about why he decided to stop in Joplin, though. I do like that. All right, Tanya, we've got some fog lingering outside of Television City right there. Really not cutting down visibility too bad on our highways, but by this point in time, shouldn't need to worry about having your brights on. Kind of obscuring the sun, though, just a little bit, and it's going to take probably about an hour and a half or so before the fog is completely gone. While we did see some high 60s earlier this morning, everybody locked into the low to mid 70s. Let's roll 73 in Joplin, 74 in both Chanute and Stockton, 70 in Monette, and 72 in Maya, despite the fact of what it may be right now. No surprise, excessive heat warnings lasting all the way until Friday. That's in the purple. And of course the orange, a heat advisory. And look at this, that doesn't expire until tomorrow night, giving you an idea that even after we get through today, everything is going to just reemerge for tomorrow. Anything below the jet stream is where the heat dome still exists, and it's done a good job stretching east all the way to the mid-Atlantic as well. Not so much on the severe thunderstorm risk map, especially for us. We just need to be safe while staying outside for prolonged periods of time today, as we'll be back up in the mid to high 90s for Friday and Saturday, feeling about like 105 to 107 each afternoon. Let's press into Saturday night, because that's where we've got the good developments, and they're going to come in the form of some thunderstorm activity. I think the ground may be dry enough to kind of hold off localized flooding. But at points in time, we're going to get some good rain to come down here Saturday night, Sunday morning, and then look at this. Finally, some 80s is going to carry us not only for the first day of August, which happens to be Sunday, but then all the way through the first week of August as well.
All right, well, up next, the latest on the Delta variant and how governments and health officials are rising to meet the challenge. And four-state staycation returns with a European-style resort in Knoll, Missouri. You're watching the KOAM Morning News. More real news in the morning.
Hi,
Federal government is revamping its pandemic strategy to confront the growing threat posed by the Delta variant's rapid spread. New vaccine mandates and incentive programs are all on the table. Laura Podesta reports from New York.
The federal government is rolling out new strategies to get more people vaccinated against COVID-19.
It's an American blessing that we have vaccines for each and every American. And it's a shame. It's just such a shame to squander that blessing.
President Biden unveiled a new rule requiring federal workers and contractors to get their shots or face regular testing and other restrictions. The Pentagon announced a similar mandate for members of the military. The president also urged local governments to offer $100 to vaccine holdouts.
I know the paying people to get vaccinated might sound unfair to folks who've gotten vaccinated already. But here's the deal. If incentives help us beat this virus, I believe we should use them.
Mr. Biden said the incentives could be paid for with federal pandemic relief money. There are about 100 million unvaccinated people who are eligible to get inoculated. Experts blame the surge in cases on the more contagious Delta variant.
The situation is dire. This Delta variant that we're seeing now changes the game from my perspective.
According to published reports, the CDC found the Delta variant spreads as easily as chickenpox and appears to make people more sick than the original virus did. The agency is expected to publish its research today, along with a call to, quote, acknowledge the war has changed. Laura Podesta, CBS News.
That report and the CDC's decision to recommend wearing masks again reportedly stem from its investigation of a recent outbreak in Provincetown, Massachusetts. COVID-19 could play a role in advancing Alzheimer's in some patients. The Alzheimer's Association says many coronavirus survivors deal with loss of smell and taste, as well as persistent forgetfulness, months after they have recovered from the initial illness. Researchers say new data points to COVID-19 infections leading to lasting cognitive impairment and Alzheimer's symptoms. A new investigation from the British Medical Journal shows dozens of drugs approved by the FDA through an accelerated process have not been confirmed to be effective. The agency's accelerated program allows for treatments for serious diseases to get to patients quickly. But according to the BMJ, nearly half of the drugs the agency has approved this way have not gone through required additional trials to prove they are clinically effective, and most still remain on the market. Women are less likely to receive timely treatment for the deadliest type of stroke. A study by the Society of Neurointerventional Surgery shows women are not taken to level 1 stroke centers as often as men. Doctors say it's critical patients receive immediate treatment to reopen blocked arteries in the brain after a stroke, and only level 1 centers provide this comprehensive treatment around the clock. Well, there's a new addition at the Tulsa, Oklahoma Zoo. This female Malayan tiger cub. Oh, you can't get much cuter than that. She was born earlier this month, but zoo officials waited until yesterday, which was International Tiger Day, to make the announcement. Malayan tigers are the national animal of Malaysia, but there are fewer than 250 in the wild due to threats such as habitat loss and poaching. This cub is the 6th Malayan tiger cub to be born at the Tulsa Zoo.
I've always been a fan of the Tulsa Zoo. I think it's a beautiful place down there.
Okay, this is my favorite shot. The snuggle. Aww.
Sea otter exhibit right as you walk in the entrance there.
I have never been to the Tulsa Zoo. That's one. It's on my bucket list. Yes. Well, now they got to do new baby cub. We got to go see. So.
Oh, the Tulsa. They do a great job at the Tulsa Zoo. They really do. I've always enjoyed trips down there, and it's close too.
Yeah.
Super close.
No doubt, no doubt.
You don't have to go all the way into town or anything. All right, live look on Rangeline. Tilted the camera down to the south. We usually just don't take that view very often. Look at that. There's a lot of people out and about on this Friday. They're like, everybody's thinking it's too hot. Let's call it a 4-day work week. We'll call it good, Michael. 73 degrees is where we stand right now. That humidity still at 93%. 71 in Pittsburgh and Oswego. 70 in Monette. Let's roll 72 right there in Miami. The excessive heat warning for our counties in purple lasting until tonight and already extended. The heat advisory, that's what you see there in orange. That goes until Saturday. Now, one thing about the advisories and warnings with the heat. Earlier this week, it was up here by the Canadian border, and while we've seen it recede down to the north, where right on the Kansas state line right there, look how far it's pushed to the east. Now the heat advisories run all the way to the mid-Atlantic. No worries for us on the Skywatch Storm Tracker. This is that light cloud cover that we've been watching from our tower cams. Overnight got a little interesting, especially through St. Louis and central Missouri. It's kind of died down now. As you can see where the heat domes still exist, right there underneath the jet stream with all the thunderstorm activity kind of riding exactly where the highest portion of that mid-level jet is sweeping in out of Canada. Up into the mid-90s later on today, feeling between 105 and 107, kind of the same thing that we had yesterday. Peak heating hours, say between 2:30 and 5 p.m. And then we're going to roll the same thing on Saturday. Changes come Saturday night, and that's when the thunderstorms build to the north-northwest. We'll see some pretty good bouts of rain here as this thing rolls through all the way into Sunday morning. But, whew, thank goodness, brings us much more mild temperatures. Whole bunch of 80s there to begin our first week of August. We'll be back with more KOAM Morning News on Fox 14 right after this.
Will and Lynn Mosby have been living their dream for the past 12 years, and it all started after a trip abroad. Amazed by what they saw overseas, Mosby's decided to bring a taste of Europe to their hometown of Knoll. For our next 4-state staycation, KOAM photojournalist Liam Mandelbaum takes us inside the Ginger Blue Inn.
There was a lot of work, but at the same time, it was a work of love. The labor of love that you just, people say, well, I don't know how you do it. Well, it was kind of fun. You know, I mean, yeah, it's work, but there was a fun aspect to it also. And so we'd come home from work, we'd work till dark. Lynn would come in and cook us a bite to eat. We'd get up in the morning and start it all over again.
We moved here in 1990. It was a little 3-bedroom house, and my husband was a builder in Bella Vista for many years, and so we had the dream of
a resort at some time in our life. Well, when we got to be about 50 years old, we looked at each other and said, hey, if we're going to do this, we better get started.
Well, we went to Europe and we loved the architecture over there, and that just always stuck with us.
I was standing in a tower in Canterbury, England, and in this tower I could see all this neat structure of these older homes and older businesses and that type of thing. We don't have anything old here. Everything we have here is new compared to this. But they were these beautiful, old, stately places. And that stuck in my mind. So when we decided to do this,
that's where our inspiration came from. And that's what we wanted to achieve, was the old world.
When you have a dream, the dream keeps building. And that's kind of what happens to us. What I don't think of, Lynn does. You know, she keeps me busy that way. Mine's bad enough, but when you add hers to it, then we have a lot of things to accomplish.
They seem like a great couple. If you would like to take in the serenity of Knoll, Missouri, we have a link in this story on our website. Just head over to KOAMnewsnow.com. We'll be right back. It's time to honor today's four-state hero. World War I veteran Lester Kramer served in the U.S. Army. His hometown, Girard, Kansas. We salute Private Lester Kramer, our four-state hero. An adoptive mother in Arkansas is arrested, accused of purposely making a boy in her care sick. Christy Snyder was charged this week of endangering the welfare of a minor. Ian Russell reports.
THV 11 first spoke to Louis and the Schneider family in 2019 when he was in hospice care, fighting what his adopted mother said was a rare genetic disorder. Louis asked for letters from every state and received gifts from law enforcement from across the country. He even got to throw out the first pitch at a Travelers game. But later on in 2019, the Saline County Sheriff's Office raided the family's home in Alexander. No one was able to comment on what they were doing or why they were searching the home at the time. But we learned through a Freedom of Information Act request that the department was searching for digital and physical records, including cell phones and diaries and camera system data. Louis was taken out of Christy Schneider's care, placed with another foster family, where his health started to improve. Christy and her husband Eric then lost an appeal in their custody battle to get Louis back in September of 2020. The courts ruled against the Schneiders, saying Louis had, quote, Munchausen syndrome by proxy, meaning he was being made sick on purpose by his caregivers. On Monday, Christy Schneider was charged with endangering the welfare of a minor in the first degree. It's a Class D felony, the lowest kind in Arkansas, but it can carry a sentence of up to 6 years behind bars and a $1,000 fine. Court documents say Christy did this unlawfully and purposefully. When Schneider arrived to the Sheriff's Department on Tuesday, she wouldn't answer any questions and refused to acknowledge anyone but her attorney.
Court findings say Louis' health greatly improved within days of being in DHS custody. According to the Saline County Sheriff's Office, Schneider has been released on a $100,000 bond. Another half hour of news and weather is just ahead. Coming up on the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14, Oklahoma and Texas take the next step on their way to joining the SEC. And how business in Oklahoma helped some teachers get the supplies they need for class. You're watching the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14. We'll be right back.
State's most watched news starts now.
Welcome back to the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14. It's currently 7:29. Let's take a look at today's top stories. Emergency medical services face challenges as the Delta variant spreads in the region. Mercy EMS have seen big increase in calls for services here and in Springfield. This crew out of Cassville is getting more COVID calls than other types of calls, and they have to make more long-distance trips as local hospitals fill up. Dr. Timothy Stebbins in Crawford County also says long-distance trips are their biggest challenges. When they have to take a patient to Kansas City, it takes an ambulance out of the county for a full 6 hours. The Carl Junction School District hosts a back-to-school vaccine clinic. The clinic offered the required vaccinations for kids returning to school, but also offered COVID-19 vaccines to students and parents. We spoke with one parent who said she and her family are already fully vaccinated. When it came to her 17-year-old daughter, she left the choice to her.
They did a very good job in biology last year covering the vaccine, and she felt very informed, and after asking a few questions, she made the decision herself with our support that she go ahead and get the vaccine as well.
According to the Jasper County Health Department, as of July 20th, about 15% of kids ages 12 to 17 had received at least one dose of the vaccine in the county, while around 9% were fully vaccinated. Missouri Highway Patrol says a Texas woman died on the Elk River north of Knoll, Missouri. The Highway Patrol says Maria Reyes was in a boat that hit a tree and capsized. Reyes was trapped under the boat and drowned. The Highway Patrol says a Commerce, Oklahoma man died in the same general area of the Elk River when he went into deep water. Authorities say Joel Pasquale was unable to swim back. He died at the scene. The Humane Society of Missouri says its Animal Cruelty Task Force rescued 21 dogs in McDonald County living in a, quote, appalling situation. The Missouri Department of Agriculture used a court order to inspect the property of a licensed breeder. The society claims the dogs were in extremely poor health and that there was evidence others had recently died. They say most of the dogs had no access to water. They had to amputate the leg of one, and on a scale of 1 to 10 for body condition, only one dog scored higher than a 2. Humane Society of Missouri President Kathy Warnick says, quote, these dogs have been living in horrific conditions. The breeder's neglect is inhumane and utterly reprehensible. Former Missouri Governor Jay Nixon will not run for the U.S. Senate in 2022. Nixon said in a statement that he believes he will be more effective outside of this partisan back and forth. Nixon served as governor from 2009 to 2017. Before that, he served 4 terms as Missouri Attorney General. The current field of Democratic candidates includes people with less name recognition than the announced Republican candidates. Incumbent Republican Roy Blunt announced in March that he would not seek a 3rd term. An overheating planet and temperature surge is causing the biggest meltdown of the year for Greenland. The amount of ice that liquefied on Tuesday alone would be enough to cover the whole state of Florida in more than 5 centimeters of water. This is the 3rd instance of extreme melting on Greenland in the past decade.
Yeah, I saw that story this morning. I had some amazing stats associated with that and what was going on. I thought actually the ice would cover more than the state of Florida. I know Florida's big, folks. I get that.
That's
I
a lot of
thought
ice.
it would actually cover more than that.
Yeah.
All right, as we take a live look over 7th and Rangeline, took the camera from the south where we had blue sky and tilted it to the kind of north there, and you can see the dividing line there as far as where the cloud cover is. It's not going to help us at all as far as slowing down our temperatures, sitting at 73 degrees right now over Joplin, 74 in Miami and in Chanute. Let's go 73 running from Nevada, Lamar down into Carthage with that humidity. Just pushing once again on that Joplin DFW line all the way to the east. Excessive heat warnings and heat advisories. The warnings in purple, the advisories there in orange. And the big shift that we've seen temperature-wise is the warmer temperatures have receded off to the north, but now are really pushing to the east, all the way to the mid-Atlantic right there. We haven't had any concerns on the Skywatch Storm Tracker. Tell you what though, overnight, they got a good bout of rain there. Came through St. Louis, then came back, got Columbia as well. They had lightning, heavy rain, the whole 9. But for us, we're going to be on the dry side once again. You can tell exactly where the heat dome sits, kind of from Nebraska pushing on down. So we're back up into the mid to high 90s, feeling about like 105 to 107 this afternoon. Same thing for tomorrow. That's why those heat advisories do not expire until Saturday night. Now, speaking of Saturday night, that's when we begin to develop thunderstorm activity from the north-northwest. Carries us through the nighttime, got some good heavy rain coming down right there, and all the way into Sunday morning. Nice thing is Sunday is going to be much more tolerable as our temperatures will be in the 80s, and we're able to continue that trend all the way through next week. We'll be back with more KOAM Morning News on Fox 14 right after this. Ta-da! KOAM News Now Facebook page and our morning Insta poll. It's about NFL players and the COVID vaccine, because now that teams have begun training camp, you do have mandatory vaccinations in place for front office officials, coaches, and what are considered Tier 1 personnel. Those would be the people, equipment managers, that are on the field all the time. But for the time being, players are not required to get vaccinated. Now, a team could be forced to forfeit a game for a COVID outbreak that does stem from an unvaccinated player. And what that would also mean is not only a loss in the record column, but if you're to blame for that unvaccinated outbreak, well, you and the rest of your roster forfeit a game day paycheck, by the way. Our question specifically is, should the NFL require players to get the COVID vaccine? And after starting out overwhelmingly with that, yes, Patrick Mahomes, frozen in time. Right now, 53% of you have come back and say no. You can take part each and every morning simply by going to our Facebook page or directly to the poll, KOAMnewsnow.com/vote. Now we can go back to Patrick Mahomes. Patrick. It's a pretty cool video, you know. He was overlooking, he dropped back. He was going to throw the ball, I think, because it was day 2 of Chiefs camp in St. Joe. All right, I'll do without the video. Running back Clyde Edwards-Helaire, he's entering his second year with the team after being picked in the first round of the draft in 2020. Racked up 1,100 scrimmage yards in just 13 games last year as a rookie. Edwards-Helaire talked about the changes from year 1 to year 2 and actually getting to be around the team in the offseason.
Everything was kind of sped up at the beginning of the season, so during the season it was the time kind of to get comfortable, and then it was mask and kind of staying away from each other, so trying to even bond, outside, it really wasn't happening. The only time that we were able to be around each other was on the field. So, it started to show towards the end of the season, but this offseason was kind of was big for me.
This into the conference, the vote was unanimous. All 14 presidents, including the president of Texas A&M, voting to bring the two teams in and create a 16-team league. Change goes into effect at least by July 1, 2025. It probably won't happen a little bit earlier. OU and Texas Board of Regents meeting today to officially accept the invitation. The Pittsburgh Little League baseball team is still alive in the postseason. Pittsburgh won a state championship last week, and now representing Kansas in the Midwest Regional Tournament next week. Our own Danny Terzer caught up with the team as they prepare to hit the road to Indianapolis.
Pittsburgh continues its hunt towards the Little League World Series title.
We grew up watching the Little League World Series and stuff, so just that opportunity to make it there is very exciting. So the guys are really excited and just want to go there and play some good baseball.
Pittsburgh won the state tournament without dropping a single game. Now they advance to the Midwest Regional Tournament in Indianapolis.
It felt good being a good team, Baxter, and just getting to know you get to go to Indianapolis and playing against good teams.
They are ready for the challenge.
Is that fast? Is that the fastest you've ever seen?
We'll have to hitting to score runs, and then our pitchers throw strikes. But I think we have a really good group of kids here that can do all those things. So it's just showing up and making sure they play.
We're definitely confident. We're just ready to have fun and go play in Indy.
Come on, let's get ready to play here. Get ready to play here.
Pittsburgh Little League has a history of success. Most recently, they sent teams to regionals in both 2018 and 2019.
I gotta watch my brother do the same thing. I just want to follow in his footsteps.
Now, they get the chance to not just represent their hometown, but their home state.
Take a shot at it.
It's an amazing experience, just getting to represent Kansas, best team, Little League in Kansas. It's fun.
I think that's the neatest part. This is just a really supportive and nice community. So getting to represent Pittsburgh, the boys really have enjoyed that.
In Pittsburgh, Danny Terzer, KOAM Sports.
Pittsburgh's first game of the tournament, August 7th against Minnesota. Royals been the hottest team since the All-Star break. Won 8 of their last 11. That includes a walk-off win over the first-place White Sox in Game 3 of this series. Yesterday was Game 4, final game between the two teams. Salvador Perez, boom, 25th home run. KC took a 2-0 lead and once again knocks off that first-place Chicago team. Final score, 5-2. Now, here's a look at our latest medal standings as we enter Day 7 of the Olympics. Once again, the breakdown for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is by gold medals, not by total overall medals, because if you were to take that into account, the United States would be number 1 with 41 total. Be back with more KOAM Morning News on Fox 14 right after this.
In 2019, more than 3,100 people were killed in accidents involving distracted driving. And many states have laws against using devices when behind the wheel. Michael George has results from a new study that looked at how effective they are.
New York State police officers said goodbye to one of their own in April. Trooper Joseph Gallagher was putting flares on the side of the road when a car hit him. Investigators say the driver was texting at the time. Joel Feldman knows the pain of that loss. His daughter Casey was killed by a distracted driver in 2009.
The world is certainly not so well off after her death. She would have made a big difference.
Most states have some kind of ban against texting or calling while driving, but 21 states have gone a step further, enacting laws against all handheld cell phone use, including calling, texting, and using apps.
These comprehensive laws, are they working?
Yes, they are working. Dr. Motao Ju with Nationwide Children's Hospital is lead author of a new study that found comprehensive hands-free laws prevent about 140 driver deaths and nearly 14,000 driver injuries each year.
But laws that only ban texting or calling aren't nearly as effective. Researchers recommend all states adopt rules that prevent drivers from handling phones, especially teenagers.
They have the highest crash risk, so they shouldn't use any cell phone at all while driving.
I don't accept that people won't give up phones. What I say is we haven't reached them the right way.
Feldman now speaks to drivers of all ages and even young children about the dangers of being distracted behind the wheel.
We're teaching little kids how to speak up. Mommy, Daddy, I love you, but I don't feel safe when you look at your phone while driving me.
Feldman says laws are helpful, but it's up to individuals to prioritize safety and put down the phone. Michael George, CBS News, New York.
And Jeff Bezos ended his tenure at Amazon on a down note. Shares in the company declined 7% after hours trading, following its quarterly earnings report. The e-commerce giant reported its first revenue miss in 3 years, bringing in $113 billion, lightly off what analysts had hoped for. Bezos stepped down as Amazon's CEO earlier this month. He was replaced by Andy Jassy. 6 dog food varieties are being recalled because they may contain toxic levels of mold. All of the affected products include deboned chicken and rice. They were made by Sunshine Mills and have a best buy date of February 11th, 2022. No adverse health effects have been reported. Unused food can be returned for a full refund. We'll be right back with more after this, but first, let's take a look at the market prices before the opening bell. The start of school is coming up fast, and a lot of folks, including teachers, are starting to stock up on school supplies. Now, folks in one Oklahoma community wanted to do something good to make the lives of hundreds of teachers a little easier. Here's Amelia Mugavero with the story.
This is amazing.
First grade teacher Sharika Cole couldn't stop smiling as she filled up a wagon full of free supplies for her classroom.
I mean, my basket is just overrunning. It's crazy. I just am so appreciative that people thought enough of us to donate such wonderful things.
All these school supplies were donated by local businesses, nonprofits, and the Rotary Club.
These are already sharpened?
Yes.
Oh,
Jenny Jameson with Lake Area United Way says the amount of donations they've received more than doubled from last year.
Very proud of our community, very proud of what our teachers do every day, but very proud that Muskogee has stepped in and said, you know, we see you and we love you and we want to show you that.
And teachers tell me giveaways like this are needed more than ever this year because school supplies are harder to come by and prices have increased dramatically.
I know with ordering books for my library that the cost of the books and everything is just taking a little bit longer because of COVID on, you know, the manufacturing end. So that affects schools.
Some teachers even won a free iPad and free food for their students. Cole says she wants the volunteers and community to know their teachers are thankful.
It's been a hard time, and when we have things like this means so much. This is money that I do not have to spend. This is resources that I didn't even think of that I might need for my classroom, and so I'm just so thankful.
And the United Way plans to hold this event again next summer.
And of course, while that takes place in Muskogee and a wonderful event organized by their community, we actually have one coming up ourselves here in the 4 states. It'll be August 7th at the Fun Zone Depot in Pittsburgh. And once again, if you show up with a school-age kid, you've got a chance to win not one, but 3, one of what they're calling their back-to-school bundles, Tanya. And included in one, and all 3 of those is actually a tablet for the kids. This is how,
That's really cool.
Yeah, this is how far that they've gone to pull this off. And we're going to have more details about the back-to-school bash, as they're calling it, coming up next week right here on the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14. Let's take a look at our current conditions over 7th and Rangeline. We got some cloud cover that's grown in from the north end to the east. 73 degrees is where we stand right now. We're off to another extremely warm morning as we range from 70 in Parsons to 74 in Miami and Lamar. Pittsburgh at 72, and it's another humid morning, and it's going to be another humid afternoon. Really think if things would be a little bit different if we actually had a little wind blowing in. It's just been so still and calm that those excessive heat warnings show that we're going to range up around 105 to 107 as far as our heat index readings later on. Those watches and warnings associated with the heat, we find ourselves on kind of the far northern boundary of it, and it's really pressed all the way east to the mid-Atlantic. Now, nothing to worry about, just that, look at that cloud cover we were talking about to the east and to the north. It's almost, I don't want to say overcast, but mostly cloudy when you get into the eastern portion of southwest Missouri. We didn't pick up any of the rain that came overnight. It got St. Louis pretty good, then it came back and it got Columbia pretty good as well, and now it's kind of isolated up to South Dakota as far as what we're looking at for our Friday morning thunderstorms in the contiguous 48. Actual temperature be about 96. And then overnight, very warm again. So we've got 2 more days of what I think everybody's pretty much considering oppressive heat. But once we get into Saturday evening, here come the developments. Number 1, we're going to pick up some pretty heavy rain with this system that begins to work in. And also, too, look at the difference in temperatures there. Did you see it dropping right there in Nevada? And so as this thing rolls through, it is going to be one of those that has a cold front on the backside of it. So prepare for the lightning, thunder, and the rain, but then enjoy temperatures that are going to be in the 80s for our first week of August. We'll be right back and wrap up this edition of the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14 right after this.
Welcome back to the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14. Here's what's happening today. President Biden announced new COVID-19 requirements for millions of federal workers, saying they must be vaccinated or face weekly testing, masking, and social distancing rules. That comes as published reports say an internal CDC document warns that infections from the Delta variant are likely more severe. And the document reportedly says it spreads as easily as chickenpox. The Biden administration will allow a nationwide moratorium on evictions to expire tomorrow. That's despite calls from some advocates and lawmakers who want the ban on home evictions extended as COVID cases spike this summer. And disgraced Cardinal Theodore McCarrick has been charged with sexually assaulting a teenage boy at a wedding reception in Massachusetts. in 1974. He's the first cardinal in the U.S. to be charged with a sexual crime against a minor. McCarrick was defrocked by Pope Francis in 2019 after a Vatican investigation found he had sexually molested children and adults. Let's check in with Michael with a final look at your forecast.
A little twist on the old children's poem by Joseph Fink. To the west are the highest highs, to the east are the lows. Up top is where the bluebirds go, and the heat happens down below. We're going to be feeling about like 105 to 107 this afternoon, but if we can hang on here for 2 straight days of heat, eventually thunderstorm activity Saturday evening into Sunday morning is going to bring us cool temperatures back into the 80s.
Well, animal life may have existed on Earth millions of years before most scientific evidence shows. Geologist Elizabeth Turner recently discovered the fossil of a sponge in rock samples in northwestern Canada. Scientists say the primitive animal's remains could be as much as 890 million years old. That predate it from similar fossils by 350 million years.
I want to thank you all for letting us put the good in your morning all week long. We'll be back with more news and weather when we see you at noon.
Have a great morning and an even better day.
Meet